First of all, I'd like to say a few words about Erica. Just to get you back here, Erica. Because I think I speak for the entire graduating class of '88 when I say that no one in our class has given back to the study community in the way that you have over the past many years. I have more. You've been a dedicated parent. You ran the SOGA network with your sister Paulina for many years, and now you're the board chair. And I would just like to say in public, right here, that if the study decides to inaugurate another Alumna Award, I think that they should do so for someone like Erica, who has given back to the school after they graduate. And if you're looking for a name for that award, I would propose the Erica Flores Ludwig Alumna Award. Just saying. I'm very honored to be here today to accept this prestigious award, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you all. I'm also truly stressed out about it, for a few reasons. First, because when I read Judy's biography a few weeks ago, I thought being formally associated with this uber woman is a big responsibility. Judy, for many of you here today who know this, was a trailblazer. She was an ambitious woman working in a male-dominated field, a female corporate legend, recognized globally for her success in marketing and business management. And from what I read, she managed all this success with humor, humanity, and generosity. So I guess I had to ask myself the question, am I really in this woman's league? Secondly, when I was thinking about being here today making this speech, I thought about the audience, and I had a moment of panic. And it's not because of all the illustrious grads and faculty and past faculty. It wasn't about the adults. It was about you students, you girls. What can I, an old fart alumna from the previous century, what can I possibly say in 10 to 15 minutes that can A, hold your attention, and I'm watching you all? What can I say that will resonate for you at your age? And what can I say that will make it through your finely tuned bullshit detectors? I hope it's okay that I said that in front of the kindergarten class. Ask your parents what that means, girls. And lastly, I have something very, very personal and quite frankly a bit embarrassing to share with you all today. My classmates from the class of '88 will remember that, as Erica described, I was a pretty good athlete when I was a student here. I made quite good grades, and I had friends. I had very good friends. But I had one very pronounced Achilles heel as a student. I was terrified of public speaking. It remains one of my phobias today. When I was in grade 10, our English teacher, the extraordinary Miss Kathy Biggs, observed that whenever I got up in front of the class to make a presentation, my hands and knees would tremble. I would turn bright red, and I had some trouble keeping my voice steady. And so what did Kathy Biggs do to help me deal with this fear? She decided to select me as one of 2 students from the class to recite a poem in front of the whole school. I'll never forget you for that, Ms. Biggs. Not sure if I'll ever forgive you either. But Kathy Biggs was and is today a wise lady. She knew that I had things to say to the world, and that if I didn't face my fear of public speaking while I was in high school, I may never be able to communicate to my fullest potential later in life. She essentially threw me into the deep end to prove to me that I could swim. For better or for worse, this was how teaching and parenting was done in the 1980s. So returning here to the study, to the site of my original trauma, to make a speech in front of you all, especially after that incredible head girl speech, Goldie. Oh my God. You set the bar very high. This represents a certain kind of pressure for me. And I share that story because that's what I want to address here today with you students. Because pressure feels very present in our lives in 2023. And I think one of the best skills you can develop here at the study is the ability to face it and to manage it. Those of you who know me well know that I'm a huge fan of tennis. I'm not much of a player, but I love watching professional tennis. Last summer I had the good fortune of attending Wimbledon, a Grand Slam tennis event in the UK, and I noticed for the first time a quote written on the wall right where the players walk out onto center court. And it's a quote by the great tennis player, Billie Jean King. "Pressure is a privilege." That really got me thinking. Pressure is a privilege, the feeling that everybody's watching you, that you may fail publicly, that you have an impossible test coming up, that you might let people down, that the world's problems seem insurmountable. Wait a second. Why am I being so negative about pressure? No wonder I'm such a mediocre tennis player. I realized that Billie Jean King's words were inviting me to change my relationship to pressure, to think about pressure as a kind of summoning force instead of a punishing experience. To realize that if I'm feeling pressure, it's because I've put myself in a fortunate position to do something meaningful, to respond to a challenge that maybe I am uniquely in a position to face. If you're walking out on center court at Wimbledon, it's because you've worked hard to earn that spot, and now you have the exceptional opportunity to use that platform to inspire and motivate other people. Regardless of the outcome of the match, you should be saying, "Bring it on," not, "I'm afraid to go out there." Easier said than done. But let's look at pressure and the presence of it with examples that are maybe a little bit closer to home for you girls at the study. Your parents no doubt worked very hard to give you the chance to attend this exceptional school. And because of that sacrifice, each day they might exert some very well-intentioned but nonetheless unpleasant pressure on you. How did it go on that test, darling? Did you score a goal in the soccer match, sweetheart? To get that lead role in the play? And that pressure to perform isn't just coming from your parents. When I was a student here in the 80s, there was a certain amount of jockeying amongst the students to make the best grades, to become a prefect, to attend the best parties, to get into good CJEPs and universities. Today, I imagine that pressure on you is amplified 1,000-fold because of social media. And then, as if those pressures from family and friends weren't enough, the school has come up with a pretty intense motto to guide your evolution. The world needs great women. All of a sudden you're thinking, I'm just trying to make it through this semester, this day, and on top of that, I've got to figure out how to become a great woman so I don't let the world down. How can you respond to all this pressure without burning out? How can you change your relationship to pressure so that it serves you? Well, I'm going to share some answers that I found to these questions, but I will admit, and my two daughters, Ella and Beatrice, can attest to this, I don't always follow my own advice. As the saying goes, do as I say, not as I do. When you find the expectations of the world weighing on you, the first action I would recommend is sit yourself down and ask yourself, in what ways am I already pretty great? We women tend to be very hard on ourselves, to criticize ourselves instead of crediting ourselves. And I truly believe the first step to managing pressure is to give ourselves credit for the things we're already doing very well. Think of yourself as born with a unique superpower, as someone who holds the key to solving one big challenge. What key do you hold? How are you already using that key to make your community a better place? Once you can put a positive spin on the person you already are, I think you'll find that you no longer feel pressure to become anything other than that. All you have to do is keep acting on that positive conviction. And then, once you've described yourself in those positive terms, ask yourself a more philosophical question. What does it even mean to be a great woman that the world needs so badly? This is a tougher question, and it's tough to answer honestly for yourself without being influenced too much by the obvious models of success that your society is projecting onto you. You may feel that in order to be great, you have to be a high-profile leader, that you have to do something innovative, that you have to win awards or make a lot of money. Achieving those long-term performance metrics may start to occupy so much space in your mind and create so much pressure that you start to neglect some near-term actions that are attainable to each of us in every moment of our lives. What am I curious about right now? What gets me out of bed in the morning? What am I prepared to fail at before I get better? Because I love the process of learning about it so much. In my experience, as soon as I'm invested in those questions, pressure seems to evaporate. Suddenly, I'm not anxious about how I'm performing unless there's a kindergarten student sitting right next to me. I love you girls. Suddenly, I'm not anxious about how I'm performing because I get absorbed in the act of observing, of learning, and of sharing my knowledge with other people. I become so engaged in that process that I don't even realize how many hours I've spent pursuing it. And what's magical is that when you give yourself permission to follow your natural curiosity and your passion for something, you don't really care too much what other people think about what you're doing because it's intrinsically valuable to you. And before you even know it, you're on a pathway to becoming a person who can serve the world. Because I think what the world really needs today is people who are comfortable in their own skin, who are mentally resilient, who can listen to and help other people because they know how to listen to themselves, who are not only striving to win, but also looking for solutions so that less people lose, who can get over their anxiety about being great in order to pursue truly great things. Things like tolerance, kindness, justice, and peace. Maybe what the world needs today is a little less pressure and a bit more acceptance. But that acceptance starts with us accepting ourselves. Why is that so hard to do today? That is the subject for another speech that I'm not going to make today. But what I can say is that it took me about 25 years to accept that I could follow my passion for theater and still be considered a great woman who can serve her community in meaningful ways. So I want to thank a few people in this room who have really helped me do that. My best friend, Sarah Berdine, class of '87, who has been feeding me positive vibes, love, and moral support for pretty much my whole life. Thank you, Sarah. To my two daughters, Ella and Beatrice, who wisely reprimand me every time I utter a negative word about myself, and have grown into great independent women because their mother has been off busy building a theater empire. Thank you. And I want to thank Erica for those words, but really to the whole study community, because I don't think you realize how meaningful this is for me to be here today to accept this award. And I want to conclude by telling you the end of my story about that terrifying poetry recital in 1987. So I got up in front of the whole school. My knees were knocking, my face turned bright red, my voice was shaking, kind of like it is now. And I did stutter through my poem. The other kids laughed and whispered about my performance when I started, but I kept going. And as I progressed with my poetry recital, my voice got a bit steadier. And as it did, I could feel that my fellow students were actually rooting for me to succeed because they knew what the experience was costing me. I didn't win the prize. That would have been the nice Hollywood ending to the story. But I didn't lose my nerve to keep on public speaking. And I've taken Ms. Biggs's advice forward into my life to keep facing my fear, and I've made many speeches and public presentations since. Sometimes I manage my phobia okay, sometimes it gets the better of me. But when it does, I just think to myself, maybe there's someone in the audience today who has the same fear as me. And if so, maybe sharing my experience will give them the courage to get up and share a great story that the world really needs to hear. Thank you so much.